in Los Angeles. I could be investing in houses that are rising up out of the ashes of those horrible fires that happened. Because now I have access to all of those properties through tokenization. I could put $50 in the Dubai project. I could put another 500 in New York. I could go really strong in LA because I feel like that's going to come. I could put a couple of thousand in there. Now, whenever the market recovers 30% up, all of my money comes back to me in the same percentages as if I bought. All of my money comes back to me in the same percentages as if I bought the whole house. And that's going to open the market to a lot of people all over the world. All types of people will now invest in real estate. Now, the negative of that is that it will most likely cause real estate prices to go up because more investors, more liquidity creates increases in prices. But I think that will be fixed because you gotta remember, people don't see these things coming. That's why I'm a futurist, because I look at every aspect of trying to predict the future. It's not a straight line down the middle. There's all these different things that will affect how things move into the future. One of the things that people don't realize about things like real estate, especially if it's an asset that is needed, is that as the prices rise up, that forces innovation. Companies, individuals, regulation, changing of laws to create better, faster, cheaper houses to keep up with that demand. Average person can't afford a $2-3 million house. Well, we're going to create a house with futuristic materials that we created using AI that only costs a third of that. And the market will balance itself out. So I'm not worried about that. But I am saying that the XRP ledger could already be in play in some of these big real estate deals. Some jurisdictions are issuing their deeds already on chain. Using XRP's tech, it's going to make real estate transactions faster, cheaper, more global. Accessibility is improving. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to go through all this paperwork. Like anybody that's bought a house, just go on your smartphone, go on your computer, and buy a little bit of the projects that you like. Huge liquidity. Now, your homes can sell rapidly instead of going through all this process that it's like all over the world. So I believe that could be one of the paths that gets XRP to those valuations that we hope and pray that it can get to. Estimated market could be 8 to 19 trillion by 2030. And a lot of analysts are already saying that XRP price could rise exponentially if this materializes. So now, we do have an event in New York, October 4th in Dallas, 5th in New York, virtual and streaming available both days, and also the recording. If you buy the virtual, you get the recording. Inside the Chestnut Checkers Group at Academy, over 2,000 members already winning. They come to the events for free. At the event, we'll reveal the exact stocks, assets, positions to create the next wave of millionaires. CSC members, again, get in free. Not theory, it's a blueprint. We also have a brand new app, all-star analyst team, community built to win. DM me the word CNC or click the link in the caption. I'll put both links there. Hope I see you guys at the event or join us in the CNC. So, last thing I want to talk about, Quantum Leap. Quantum stocks are surging. We got IonQ up 10-15% in the last 2 weeks, but something huge has happened recently. The Department of Energy, United States Department of Energy, just put quantum computers back in the spotlight, also energy, with a groundbreaking partnership in space. IonQ Honeywell, which is the dark horse of the quantum computer race. And all others now are tied directly to government-backed projects that could fast-track real-world adoption. Investors are asking right now, is this the start of a massive quantum run or just some more smoke and mirrors? Now, let's break that down. Department of Energy, again, is partnering with IonQ Honeywell to test quantum computing use cases, bridging experiments to real-world applications. IonQ also acquired Oxford Ionics for $1 billion, and also another smaller company. They're expanding their operations to advanced quantum computers and sensors for navigation and timing. Now, this is what is going to cause, this navigation is one big thing, because one of the problems we have in space, you have to remember, people don't realize this, but on the planet Earth, location is absolute. Latitude, longitude, we know where we're at. In space is relative. There is no real location because the universe is expanding. All the galaxies are moving. The planets are going around in circles. The galaxies are circling other galaxies. And your solar system is circling another probably a black hole somewhere that you can't see. All these things are happening. There is no absolute location. It's all relative. And it's very, very hard to keep track of once you pass Earth, and Earth is no longer around. Very hard to do that. What so this is gonna the navigation part is I like is that we're gonna one day colonize space. And quantum computers, energy, and all these other technologies are gonna get us there. The Census for Navigation is a small step towards that future. So Honeywell is another one, like I said, a black horse. Has a majority stake in Quantinuum, which was backed $600 million from NVIDIA. Quantum stocks have rallied in the news. IonQ is gaining a lot. A lot of volatility. We're still in the early speculation phases, but I strongly believe in this field, in this industry, and I think this sector, and I think it's going to do great things in the future. So, last thing I want to talk about is Trump has pushed air taxis, right? And this is another one, Archer Aviation, I think is going to do well. Urban air taxis just got a political boost. President Trump made signed executive order fast tracking approvals for electric vehicles, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Archer soared because of that news. Now, the U.S. government wants to showcase how technologically advanced we are by the 2028 LA Olympics. And the fast track was put in place because of that. The people in the government want to show the world that we're advanced. So they've put in an initiative to make sure flying taxis are all over the place in LA by the Olympics. So this is going to cause a lot of those companies to get regulatory exceptions, extra capital, subsidies, whatever they have to do to get those taxis in the air. Arch Aviation is one that I really like. There's another one called Joby, but I haven't looked at that one as much as I've looked at Archer. I think Archer is a good play, low cap, probably has potential to go up a lot. Low cap stocks do tend to move because even a modest amount of energy can push their price much higher and much larger than a slower moving larger stock. So another big news is United Airlines has already ordered 200 air taxis, which shows that this is real and this is actually happening. Now, I want to go into an interview with one of my good friends. We're going to talk about some of the things that are on the horizon for AI, security, and the things his company is doing to fix or provide solutions for both. Let's get into it. No, let me do the exit. Did you stop it? You still got it? I still got it. Okay. Well, what a great interview. I really appreciated having him on. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. I appreciate you, and have a great rest of your week. Yeah, that's it. How many
All
minutes
right,
was that?
cool. Because Armando still
So here,
he be
guys, we're
working
here
on
with
his
Elliot Robin,
he
the
be
Chief
working on
Growth
his
Officer of Samsung,
whatchamacallit
one of
his
the best
live.
companies I've
He
seen
always
in the
has some
last few
technical
years.
stuff.
One of the
So
most exciting companies on the forefront of
listen to
compliance
this, and I'm gonna hop off
and fraud prevention. Two things
or
that you
hop
really
over.
need for crypto to move forward. So how you guys doing today?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm great. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this position, and what you think about the world of compliance and fraud prevention.
Sure. First, thanks for having me on the podcast. And yeah, I've been with SumSub for close to 4 years now, leading a few dimensions, heavily involved in our product strategy in terms of where we're going, which products we're developing, market strategy, which markets we're entering into. As part of that, involved heavily in the strategic business development, key partnerships, clients globally. And yeah, as you rightly mentioned, we are one of the largest compliance and fraud prevention players. Crypto that you mentioned is one of the industries that we work a lot with, and probably we're the number one player over there. But more broadly, we work across all of fintechs and financial companies, regulated and unregulated as well, because there's a quite close connection between just generally trust, ability to establish trust with whoever you're interacting with, and what's required for compliance. So about a quarter of our business is actually unregulated businesses that just want to know who they're dealing with. And I think that's a pretty broad area that we're working in with the advances of technology, not just crypto, but just AI and deepfakes. There's just a kind of a bit of an erosion of trust when you're dealing with people remotely. And we're trying to help solve this problem broadly, not just in compliance, but primarily focused on compliance as well.
My background, and I think we spoke about this before the episode started, is in software security. That's how I got into crypto so early. So one of the things that I've seen, I got into crypto in 2011, very early. So from like 2011 to 2017, there was very little compliance, very little KYC. You could sign up with an exchange just with your email address. And that was the way crypto worked for the first 8 or 9 years of existence. And then I remember I went to the first time I ever heard about KYC applied to cryptocurrency. I was at the Bitcoin conference in Miami 2018. And I remember that year was filled with lawyers, all pushing, you have to do KYC. It was all, and we actually ran a crypto project at that point. We had to change everything over to get KYC from people who were logging on or coming onto our platform. And it was a lot of work. I had to learn a lot about KYC, how it worked, how the bank level KYC worked. A lot has changed. What I'm trying to say is a lot has changed in the last 10, 15 years of crypto's existence, 14 years. So what's the biggest change you've seen in the last, let's say, year, and how crypto platforms approach compliance in regards to what you guys are doing?
Yeah. The first, I want to echo what you said. Yeah. Obviously, the bank type of compliance has existed for decades now. And when crypto companies appeared, yeah, none of that was present. But I must say that they went through quite a steep journey in terms of very quickly moving to what's now pretty much a standard of compliance because they fall under the same regulations. So they fundamentally need to do the same things, but they've been learning very fast. And today, most of our clients are treating compliance in exactly the same way as our non-crypto clients are. And a lot of the regulations that apply elsewhere are not only applied, but also enforced in crypto. But there's one clear distinction. The sector that I would say involves fintechs as well wants to do things very efficiently, very quickly, globally as well for crypto. So now you kind of have to cover the whole user journey. And this is what we build. And to your question about what has changed in the last year, I'd say that the regulatory clarity on the global scale has finally arrived in Europe a little bit before, but now in the US as well, which does two things. On one side, it opens up the market to pretty much everybody, makes it mass market, not just to the enthusiasts. The flip side of that is you have to comply. You have to be proper in what you do. And you need to do all these things. And it's hard to do them if you have to use 20 different providers for 20 different things and then times that by the regions you're working with. So that's where I think we come in by offering an integrated end-to-end platform that covers everything from onboarding to compliance monitoring, ongoing monitoring, fraud prevention, and on a global scale. The other thing that I think changed a bit is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, is AI and AI-driven fraud, which really raises the bar for what these companies have to do. And that's where you can actually see the TradFi space falling really behind because the systems and the tools that they use are by now really legacy, really. And a lot of them are struggling with the same problems that if you thought crypto was the primary target for the bad actors now, but now the more TradFi players are feeling it and are struggling and scraping to get their act together.
Yeah, over my journey of cryptocurrency, I got into crypto in my 20s. I was a little bit more rebel back then, a little wilder. So I got into it because of the freedom and the not you could be anonymous with crypto. Nobody would know who owned what wallets or whatever. So when in 2017, 18, when the KYC stuff started, when I was very angry because I felt like it was coming against or going against the ethos of cryptocurrency in general. But it took me about a year after that to realize, echoing what you just said, is that the masses would never accept it unless it was secured by companies like yours and also government regulation. So in order for crypto to get to where it was in the early days to where it's going now with the government accepting it all over, governments accepting it all over the world, organizations, big corporations, it had to have this. And I didn't know that when I was younger, and I understand it now a lot more as I got older. And also it's something that we couldn't predict in the early days of crypto. And that's AI, deep fakes. Nobody would have predicted how. And I tell my kids often, I say, look, when AI first started, we thought it would be robots walking around, but we never would have thought that AI would be mostly generative content. During videos, content, all we're going here, text, yeah, we're getting there, but that was never predicted in any other books I read when I was a kid about generating videos. And deep fakes are a huge problem. Sam Altman works on a project. And he says that for every one person, there'll be at least 100 different AI personalities in the future, and they will act like a person, they will talk like a person. You won't even know the difference. We're seeing a surge in the deep fakes. So I want to know from you guys being inside the problem, how big of a problem is this really going forward? And how are you guys working to solve that?
Yeah. Yeah, look, before I answer that specifically, the way I think about this is that, like in real life, it used to be like you can believe what, right? You see the person, talk to them, right? You can believe them. And online, it used to be the same. Maybe you not believe what you read, but if you see it in a video, in a photo, or talking with a person on a call, you say, okay, now I believe it. Now, what AI has done in the last 12 to 18 months, extremely fast, is really destroyed that foundation of trust that we implicitly are used to trust. There are romance scams, there's ping butchering, there's selection, manipulation in many places with just generated context. So I think just broadly, it's a much bigger problem. In a way, the part of it that we're trying to solve for, that we're solving for in the compliance space, is actually slightly a bit easier, right? Because we're not dealing with all sorts of random types of content. We are asking somebody to look in the camera in a straight way
Yeah.
and to turn their head. But we've gotten to the point, or the technology has gotten to the point where we would have humans as a backup, right? Okay, if the system is not sure, then maybe a human needs to check, and that was the way to be sure that the document is right. Nowadays, it doesn't work this way. A human can no longer actually detect if it's a fake document or if it's a deep fake in the video they're dealing with. And so now you really have to blend technology and human involvement in certain cases to detect it. And so that's the way we're dealing it. We call it fight AI with AI. We have to train very sophisticated models to detect deepfakes. But the other thing,
Yeah, just another time echoing on what you said is that on a social level, I've noticed that a lot of people who are not as sophisticated or not as technology savvy, they discount all information as AI now. Like anything that they don't agree with, that's AI.
it's just
And it's
safe assumption.
scary because it's a safe assumption, right? It's a scary thing because we can't live in a society where what you don't believe, that will cause breakdown in politics, social relationships, everything. So there has to be something that comes along in society that will make sure what we see and hear is true. And I think that's a big business opportunity for companies. Now, if we narrow it down to just crypto, and you guys are doing that, in order for crypto to grow, remember, cryptocurrency is still an easy target. It's not like cash where you can go into a bank account, wire transfer. It's harder to do that.
What is still quite widely used in TradFi is trying to confirm people's identity by some data points they tell about themselves, and that can be verified several. You give me your social security number and your name, and I go think some database and says yes, that person exists with that number, and that would be considered okay back in the day. I think now no longer. So one thing you need to first add is actually checking the real document and the biometric identification. But again, the point is not only in being able to verify what you're given, it's also being able to detect that you're not being defrauded. That's, I always say, that's the harder part. The piece about reading what's on the document is actually the more trivial one. It's like, how do you know that you are dealing with a person who they say they are, who are presenting this document? And that's where I think the key word here is that multi-layer protection I mentioned, is just that you cannot rely on just one thing, just sending the data point to the database. We'll be looking at your face, how you deepfake live, whether there is a third person in the camera, if you're holding your phone to, like lots of these things, they're like literally over 100 data points, all of which will be corroborated against each other in real time, so that within 30, 20, 30 seconds, unless there's a need to step up, right, we would know that you are who you are and you've complied with what the customer needs. I think that's the difficulty now. And then we need to go and we have a statistic, actually 2/3 of fraud actually happens post onboarding, because like the onboarding in KYC is just the first step. A lot of times you cannot just catch somebody, or it's a real person but they're
Push them later when something doesn't match up.
yeah, look,
Good, you signed up in Argentina and now they're in Germany and it's the same day.
people, they come and they give us a German passport, but they are on an IP from Bangladesh. I'm just making it up, and something else doesn't match. And that maybe not necessarily true. People travel, but at the same time, if you put several of those together, it raises exactly. So you need to calculate dynamic risk scores. But then the other important, like you will not catch everybody at the onboarding stage. There will be some very sophisticated fraudsters that might be able to get through, because again, depending on how the client has set things up. And secondly, there are other problems. There are money mules, there are fraudulent networks where real people with real documents are onboarding to then sell their accounts to somebody else for not a lot of money. And you're only able to detect them as fraudsters or money launderers after the fact. So then you need to monitor their activity, their login activity, where they're interacting with the service from, how they're interacting, what type of activity they're doing. You need all of the onboarding data. So that's why we actually bring all these tools in one platform, because that's the only way to do it. And even if the company, if the client is actually doing it well at different stages, but using different systems, a lot of times a disconnection that they knew about something about the client from the onboarding, but they didn't take that into account when they were monitoring them on an ongoing basis, and there's still a failure. Yeah, so it's becoming much more difficult to just use very limited point solutions. You need to work both across the life cycle of the user and across the different points in time to really be safe.
Like I could imagine how insane it is now with security and fraud prevention and also compliance and with the emergence of the dark web, right? Is that all my work in software security was before that. So now they can trade information. They even have like classes on the dark web where they teach each other how to do this. So it's got to be crazy how many people actually attempt to defraud systems now. But I want to move on. The Genius Act just got passed here in the United States, and the Clarity Act is starting to get some attention. Where do you think regulation as of today is moving forward in the United States?
First of all, I want to say that the fact that there is finally some regulation and maybe not all of the clarity is yet in law, but at least there is some directional clarity in the US is a huge boost, right? Having proper regulation in place, that kind of, to me, completes the, it kind of erases the question mark of is crypto here to stay or not? It's here to stay. It's going to still go through stages, it's going to evolve, but the fact that the major institutions are investing in the technology and in the assets on the trading side and service side, on the custody side, that banks can hold custody of assets. That's a huge step. So I think more than just specific act is just a very big and good signal for the global industry in general.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that all of it is very important. We do have some builders listening right now. So if they're thinking about building a project, or even maybe in the middle of building a project, what would be the first steps you would say from their perspective as a builder to take in to move towards multi-layer protection? And also another second thing I want to add is that could compliance even be like maybe like an advantage if you're building a project and company A has weak compliance, company B has strong compliance, company B could they have a competitive advantage based on their level of compliance?
Look, I think long term, for sure, being compliant and properly compliant is an advantage. And I actually think that only in the very early days of any market can you see the Wild West type of players coming ahead. But in the end, they have to either adapt and start becoming better regulated or better, more compliant, or die. And that's very clear, right? And we've seen players like Coinbase and like other US exchanges taking a very strong stance of we want to be on the compliance side, gaining a lot of advantage from that. So I think that answer is very clear to me. In terms of what tools and how everybody should go to compliance, there's no one answer that fits all. If you look at the Web3 space, which is the kind of the DeFi space, the standards applied to that are very different than the standards applied to centralized companies. So I don't think there's a one size fits all. But as the market develops and everything is interconnected, it will all have to speak each other. I think technology was quite clear. And what excites me, I think we're getting to the point where a lot of these pieces are coming together. You have good regulation that makes the market big enough. You have some of the regulatory clarity that makes it clear that, okay, what does DeFi do and what the requirements for that? What does CeFi do and what the requirements there are? And we need tools to make that work together. So we are on top of our regular B2B KYC service that provides a lot of CeFi clients. We are building products for the Web3 space and for the connection layer between Web3 and the CeFi space. So we're quite excited about that. So one is, and we're just also trying to make the user journeys more simple and easier for people. Because look, I'm sure nobody loves KYC processes even for what they are. We have one way where we're just improving the UI UX of the interaction, where we allowing people to reuse some of the documents they've submitted previously in a compliant and secure way, and not to spend all this time photographing your document and passport. So that's a Web 2 type of product, but actually from a real world impact today, we believe it will have a huge impact. And our customers are very excited about it, because a lot of their customers, especially in the crypto space, is a lot of the businesses, they're actually composed of different types of services connected together through APIs and partnerships.
Yeah.
But at each stage, you got to need to redo KYC all the time. And we're just making it faster. We're just saying, look, we've seen you, we have your document. You can whiz through that. Yes, you still need to do liveness. Yes, we'll still do the email check, but I'm comparing this to making the KYC more like biometric authentication.
Yeah.
So that's one. That's one. Another one is we're developing some solutions for the actual Web3, where we are issuing certain types of digital identity credentials tied to people's wallets, that they can control what these credentials say. They can use them natively on chain in a programmatic way. And we think that sort of connectivity between the Web 2 and the Web 3 opens up a lot of flexibility, use cases, again, convenience, and therefore it opens up the market.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the future as well. I think, especially what you guys are working on, is going to open the market up to a lot of people. And not just you, it's a lot of companies, but I like what you guys are doing a lot. Great conversation. So, what if the listeners want to learn more about what you guys are doing? How can they find you?
Great question. We actually have a lot of media channels where we are not just telling about like our products and about ourselves, but also sharing a lot of knowledge and stories and just expertise from around the world. So I think both professionals as well as regular people can learn a lot. We have a YouTube channel where we share stories about how fraudsters operate, how to stay safe, how to ensure you're not being defrauded. Likewise, we have content for professionals who want to know what's the cutting edge of fraud prevention and compliance.
All right, great. I hope everybody takes a chance to go look at some of that. I appreciate having you. I loved the conversation. A lot of great information. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Try this trick for 15 days and eliminate 20 years of neuropathy pain. I know it sounds like an exaggeration, but this was the first sign that my nerves were being destroyed without me knowing. When I was suffering from neuropathy with numbness, tingling, and that shocking sensation in my feet and hands, I not only had to deal with the discomfort, but to make matters worse, I was also confused. That's because everyone I turned to said something different. One doctor gave me anti-inflammatories, a therapist told me to stretch and get massages, another told me to cut out everything with sugar. I followed everything exactly. The result? Nothing worked. That's when I saw a Harvard University study that